Hello everyone and welcome back to Crosses Gaming. Today we are going to take a look at Gigantic. This third-person MOBA game promises the strategy you love from all top-down MOBAs combined with the action of a third-person view action game. It is available for free either on Steam or on the Arc platform. During a recent Steam Show podcast, somebody suggested this game to me as I was talking about Paladins, and he said people were comparing this to Paladins. I can understand why some people might feel that way, but I don't think they are that similar. But one thing is for sure, they will both be competing for the same crowd of people who want to play a free-to-play game that is action-packed and includes real targeting systems. So let's get straight into the review. First of all, let's talk about what makes people draw a comparison between Gigantic and Paladins. They both are games that take an inspiration in MOBA games. But Gigantic takes a much larger inspiration from these games. Paladins is more sort of your generic team-based shooter with a few abilities sprinkled in, while Gigantic takes the MOBA formula, strips it to its very core, and gives you that experience from a third-person view. So, let's talk mechanics. The basic premise of Gigantic is two teams of 5 fighting for control of an area, with the end goal being the destruction of the opposing team's guardian. Now, this does sound pretty simple, doesn't it? That's where the rest of the mechanics come into play, making the game much more complex. Because if you want to attack the enemy's guardian, your guardian first has to have enough power to pin the opponent's guardians down, exposing it to attack. The way you gather the energy is done in several different ways. You can focus on killing your opponents, map control, or killing their creatures. And because killing your enemies is pretty straightforward, let's talk about map control and creatures first. Each of the team has points on the map that they directly control, and then there are a few neutral ones that both teams might try to claim. On these points, you can summon the creatures. These creatures can either heal allies that are near them, build walls making the access to them much more limited, or they can just be primarily focused on fighting. These creatures then collect enemy as they are alive, but someone still needs to run to them and add their energy to the main pool. These pools are the main places where conflict arises, because killing the creatures of the enemies provides your team with 20 energy of the total energy needed to pin the opponent's guardians down. So, the general plan is to control the points, kill your opponents and their creatures, but to do that, you need quite a few ways to kill them. And that is where your character comes in. Currently there are 18 playable characters with 7 melee based and 11 ranged characters. These then later get divided into categories like tanks, bruisers, assassins, shooter casters, control, and healers. There are also 2 additional characters coming in the future. Each of these 5 characters has 5 abilities. One of which is always your basic attack without any cooldown, so you always have something to do, even if you just used all your cooldowns. The rest of these abilities always have some sort of cooldown attached to them, but there are different characters with different lengths of cooldown, so you can choose whatever you like. On top of that, each of these abilities has a way in which they can be upgraded. Each ability can be upgraded 2 times, each time giving you 2 choices in which you can make them more towards your personal liking. The thing I like the most about the upgrade system is the fact that you can start upgrading the abilities in the order you want to. So if you want to focus on your primary attack at the start, you can do it. But if you want to focus on, for example, your Q ability, you can do that as well. But over the course of the game, you are very likely to upgrade all the skills fully as there are only 10 levels. Okay. I think now I've described the basic mechanics of the game, and now it's time to talk a bit about how they feel during the actual game. So first of all, how does the combat feel? It feels really fast and action-packed. To be honest, it feels much quicker and more action-packed than combat in many first-person shooters. This is due to the fact that there is always something somewhere happening, and with a decent chance, once you get there, a fight is already on its way, so you just join it. It's not quietly waiting for a chance to strike like in tactical shooters, and at the same time, it's not frantic running from one spot to another, hoping that you will spot someone along the way and try to kill them like in arena shooters. if I'd be to compare this in terms of how the action feels, I'd say it actually fits somewhere between Paragon and Overwatch. It is quicker than Paragon and a bit slower than Overwatch. On the other hand, the combat does feel confusing at times, actually being somewhat similar to Overwatch again, because the amount of visual clutter can easily get pretty ridiculous. Though here I see a pretty simple fix. Just make the enemies and your teammates a bit more visible in this clutter, and suddenly all the stuff that is happening on the screen doesn't feel so bad because you can still know where your friends and where your foes are. But in general, I really like Gigantic's gameplay. The fact that the PvE is reduced to only killing creatures who essentially work as towers from other MOBAs and trying to deal the damage to the opposing team's boss completely changes the dynamic of the game. Instead of spending 20 minutes in the game farming and getting ready for the actually exciting part of the game, here we go into the team fights straight away. And this fact alone makes this MOBA one I can actually enjoy. Okay, now let's take a literal look at Gigantic. The visual style of Gigantic is probably the main reason people tend to compare it to Paladins. They both go with a style that is very much colorful, cheerful, and tries to make you feel good even in situations where your team is losing. Though, I'd say that Gigantic style is a bit more comic-like compared to Paladins. This style allows the textures to look really good enough, even though they're a bit flat compared to what most people consider HD textures these days. Luckily, it doesn't take away from the fidelity of the game. I already mentioned the amount of visual clutter that happens when you're in the midst of a battle, and to be honest, that's really my only complaint about the graphical side of the game. When it comes to the music, I'd say it isn't bad, but at the same time, it isn't excelling in any particular way. Though you guys should keep in mind that I've also been playing Pyre right now, and that's a game with exceptional music. So my current standard might be a bit higher than usual. The sounds on the hand are exceptional in Gigantic. I especially love the voices of the bosses as those sound just epic. Performance-wise, Gigantic fared really well. The game ran like butter and the netcode also worked well. The only issue currently is the waiting time for a match. But hopefully that will improve as more and more people pick up the game, and it isn't really something the developers can influence that much. So, in conclusion, Gigantic is certainly an interesting new contender on the field of MOBA games. For me personally, it might probably be the most fun of them all. Paragon is probably the closest contender, and that one is out there for those who prefer a bit more calmer, more strategic game, while Gigantic is there for those of us who prefer more action right away as they get into the match. Either way, if you're a fan of MOBA games and the prospect of playing one in third-person view is something that makes you feel interested, giving Gigantic a try is certainly a good idea, as it is completely free, and if you don't like it, you can just easily uninstall it without paying a single buck. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you liked the review, and if you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. And comment if you have something you would like to add. See you guys later with more gaming content.